We really want you to be educated about your own education. We want you to be educated about your own education. So we hope that you are taking advantage of a variety of resources. A lot of times students, I think, falsely believe that independence in college means that you do everything by yourself on your own, as if you're on a deserted island to fend for yourself. And I really don't think that's true at Fordham. I think the most independent people are the ones who seek out the resources to make them more accountable, more assertive, and then to produce better results. So please do take advantage of this. And there's a variety of people that are there. Obviously, our student leaders in new student orientation, the academic deans of the respective colleges. Also, your connection with your SFACs. Just a reminder of that acronym, the SFACs, your summer first year academic coordinators. So these are the individuals that have been working with you for a few months now, getting you acclimated about your own course of study, educated about your own education, asking some questions along the way, looking at a few different options in terms of your courses and scheduling too. So please do continue that relationship. Okay? The vast majority of you have already made contact with them. If for some reason you haven't made individual contact with them, but only have been looking at their emails, I do encourage you to reach out to them. They're looking and interested in seeing and getting to know you. So please write to them. We've been emailing you a lot on your Fordham account as well as your personal emails, and the SFACs have been doing that as well. A second thing that I would remind you about is to keep looking at the Blackboard site. So that's from an email that I sent you a few times actually in the past, and your SFACs have sent you as well. The Blackboard is the portal by which you can access a lot of insightful and informational guides about course registration, about the core curriculum, about thoughts that you might have about your academic career at this point. So there's a lot of videos as well as summary sheets that can help you make sense of a lot of material. We do recognize that there's an awful lot to know and to learn. So our intention is to present it to you in bite-sized digestible portions, and that's the model that we follow on the Blackboard site too. So take some time, if you haven't already, to further educate and go a little deeper in the curriculum so you understand what you're taking, why you're taking it, the options, and so on. Because I think that's actually a great sense of independence and freedom, is when you understand what you're doing, rather than just simply following perhaps what a prescribed course of study is like. Linking to that, I'm sure by now you're good friends with DW, DegreeWorks. So DegreeWorks is our system that we use at Fordham that helps account for the courses and prescribed courses that you'll wind up taking in the fall. So we have what's called degree work guidance. So from your student tab, when you identify the DW link, you can identify the courses of study that we recommend that you take. And remember, that was based on two things. Number one, the survey that you took earlier on in the summer, during which you indicated your academic interests and you ranked your options. And secondly, based on the course of study that perhaps you identified to us that you wanted to do, whether it be STEM, non-STEM, so on and so forth. So use the degree work guidance to help you. Tomorrow, as you know, begins the open period should any of you have to go in and make any final changes for course scheduling. The last 2 weeks, your SVACs have been working busily reviewing each student's schedule individually to make sure that it's complete, that there are no errors, that you're not registered for the wrong courses or sections or designations. So starting tomorrow, should any corrections need to be made, it would be opened up for you. And then rest assured, there is one more schedule review period in August, during which we can account for any last minute APs or IB scores that might have bearing on your curriculum. So we do this intentionally slowly throughout the summer to make sure that you're understanding your courses, your registrations, but then also that we're attending to realities that might change later on so that there's time to make any corrections or additions. The last thing I'll mention at this point is I hope that you are excited about your first year at Fordham College at Rose Hill for a variety of reasons, and hopefully two in particular stick out to you. They definitely do for me. Number one is this is a great opportunity for you to really explore what you don't know. Take advantage of that. You're smart, you work hard, ask questions. Take a course that is totally foreign to you. That's a great thing. A lot of times the expectation is to simply try to take courses of which I already have some prior exposure. but there may not be as much challenge there. One of the best situations I could think of is a student who came to me last year and said, you know, I know nothing about anthropology at all, but I'm going to take a course in that to learn a little more about it. And that's great. Realize that the core curriculum is there to give you opportunities to see what you like, what you're good at, to recognize the convergence of different fields of study, right? So it's not simply 13th grade to just get through like a bad dentist appointment. I hope that's not what you're seeing this as, but a great opportunity to really learn about yourself. The second thing that strikes me is it's very Ignatian. That Ignatius is the founder of the Jesuits, of which Fordham is in the Jesuit network of schools. And he would often talk about the sense of self-reflection or self-inventory. So I hope that's something that definitely is one of the reasons why you chose Fordham College at Rose Hill. That's why we're here. That every day you recognize that I need to do a little self-assessment. What did I do well in? What did I do poorly in? Where do I need to pick up the slack? How do I ask questions? How do I seek out resources? Do a little self-inventory. It's a very healthy psychological as well as intellectual, and I would often argue spiritual way to grow and develop too. Take some time for yourself to unpack what you're doing. Do a little self-inventory, and you can see that modeled throughout your courses, where your professors will be challenging three parts of you: your head, intellectually, your heart, your belief systems, and your hands, the ways in which you're going to roll up your sleeves, I did it already, and get out there in the world and transform it for the better. So keep that in mind, using your head, heart, and hands. I now turn it over to Dean Garcia, my colleague, who will mention a few items for you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on here with you all. My name is Cristobal Garcia. I'm the Assistant Dean for Student Support and Success at Fordham College, Rose Hill. And it's really been my pleasure to spend my summer chatting with you all on Zoom, and I'm very much looking forward to our time together. So thank you, Dean Parmack. I'm going to share a little bit with you about your first year kind of at Fordham in terms of the academic life and for you to get a better sense of what the kind of key components are. I'll talk a little bit about our timeline related to registration, as many of you have done the heavy lifting already and are just now at the finalizing and editing. And then I'll share some tips for success that I have found to be particularly useful and that I hope you too will find particularly useful as you prepare to enter. So I'm going to share my screen with you all and share this presentation. All right, so first things first, Dean Parmack just mentioned SPAC. So you soon will learn that at Fordham College, Rose Hill, there are many, many acronyms, and SPAC is just one of the many that you'll be introduced to. So SPAC is your summer first year academic coordinator, and at this point you should have been communicating with them, or if you haven't communicated, you've gotten information from them, and they are your point person for academic related things, especially as they pertain to registration. After the summer registration period ends on August 18th, you will then be transitioned to the full first year experience, where Dean Parmack is your first year dean, and he will be your point person and key connection to the dean's office, but you'll also be assigned a core advisor who's either a faculty member or an administrator, and this person will be sort of your small group person and your one-on-one person. And so, you know, those kind of more regular questions about, hey, I have a question about, should I register for this? Might I change my schedule? Might go to your core advisor, and that would be the appropriate person. And then you'll have a first year advising student assistant, and that's an upperclassman, and that person will also be available to answer questions, but also give you some of those kind of big brother, big sister tips, where they might share, you know, some insight about why a class in the morning was a better option for them, or how they picked their major, or, you know, some tips for how to register more effectively, etc. And they'll be available to you throughout the academic year. And then lastly, in orange and purple, you'll see my office, which is a part of the Fordham College Rose Hill Dean's office. And so myself, an academic counselor, and a graduate intern are available to support students more individually. So some students may have questions that might take longer, that they'd like to spend more time meeting, or would like to be meeting with someone more regularly and consistently to develop academic skills. Our office is able to provide that. We'll be offering workshops as well. So everything from time management, study skills, resilience, kind of getting ready for online learning are things that will be coming out of our office. So keep an eye out for things coming out of student support at Fordham College, Rose Hill. And so just a little review of where we are in the registration timeline. So as you all know, we had 2 waves in which first we had our STEM and pre-health students register, and then we had our wave 2 where all our non-STEM students registered. Right now we're in the yellow period, which is the audit period. And today, 7/13, is the last day of the audit period. And what that simply means is that between 7/13, I guess it'll be 7/14 because tomorrow, so starting tomorrow until August 12th, students are able to make changes to their schedules. You should have received communication from your SPAC with recommendations if there was a change. If there was no change needed, you may not have heard from your SPAC. You most likely heard from your SPAC if there was a change that needed to take place in your schedule. But know that during this time, you're free to change. So if there's something that you picked earlier, but you don't know, you no longer think that's the course that you want to take, this is a good time to take a look. There are also English 1101s and English 1102s that have now become available. So some students may not have registered for those in the first wave. There are now some of those sections available. So you don't lose anything if you want to take a double look to see if there's anything that opened up that maybe was closed when you tried to register for it in June. Because rest assured that your SPAC will take a look again at your registration. So between 8/12 and 8/18, your SPAC is going to take a quick look and make sure that everything is in place. And if there are any additional changes, then they will reach out to you. After 8/18, your SPAC's role is going to end and you'll be introduced to your core advisor. And like I mentioned, this will be a faculty or administrator with whom you will work with minimally for 3 semesters and in most cases for a full 2 years. And so after your sophomore year, you will then be introduced to a major advisor in the department that you have selected to pursue your studies in. And then know that between 8/20 and September 3rd, students are able to make any other additional changes. During that period, we have what we call drop add, which is after classes start, students are able to visit a class, attend a class, review a class, and decide whether the class is the right fit. And if it's not, then they can make changes at that time. If you have questions during the student-initiated course changes, you should contact your core advisor, and they will be the ideal person to answer those questions. Okay, so that's a little housekeeping and just a little update as to where we are. So right now we're in the yellow period, soon to be in changes of recommended period starting tomorrow. All right, so some tips for academic success. And so my first one, and if you get to know me, you'll know that I love to share this, is the iceberg illusion. And I'll tell you why I like to share it. I like to share it because I think that many times there's a false illusion about what success really looks like and like what it takes to be successful. And when we do that, we don't normalize failure. And when we don't normalize failure, we don't give ourselves a chance to come back from mistakes that we've made, from being able to learn from those things. And so the iceberg is only 10% visible to the human eye. 90% of the iceberg is not visible, right? And so in reality, a lot of the iceberg, most of the iceberg, you are not able to see. So you have no idea the depth of it. The same thing, I think, happens in our success, right? So many times people just see the end result. Like they see us at the finish line, but like they didn't know what it took to run the 26 miles of the marathon. And the New York City Marathon is crazy. And it takes a really long time to complete. And nobody really knows what it took, like when you were in Queens and like when you were in Brooklyn and like when you were in the Bronx. Like they don't know. But they only see you at the end when they're cheering you on and saying like, congratulations, you did it. It sometimes feels like that as well in undergrad, especially in your first year, right? When there are moments where you might have failed. There are moments where you've had to make some real sacrifices, or moments where you were really disappointed, where you expected things to go some way and they didn't. And so know that your success at the end is going to be the result of all of those things. So all of the things at the bottom are going to be the things that will lead you to your success at the top. So I, again, want to make sure that I mention that we're wanting to normalize moments of failure because in those we learn probably the most, but that those are moments where we can come back. So these are my other tips for you. So the first one is like know yourself. And I often tell this to our first year students and I say, you know more about yourself than anybody else at this college. What? Yeah, like even though you think I'm an expert, really you are the expert in you. And so I encourage you to really tap into the things that you know about yourself and use those to propel you forward in your success. Because it's not just the good things that you know about yourself, but it's also the limitations that you know about yourself or the weaknesses that you know about yourself, because then you know that you need to address them, right? And you can operate with a plan, right? Because you take off the blinders and you're really, really honest about the things that can be challenging for you, but also the things maybe that you're really, really good at. And that could serve you well in picking a major, that could serve you well in making decisions about opportunities and experiences and things that you value. The next one is know what needs to get done and prioritize. Sometimes we know exactly what needs to get done, but we don't prioritize it because there's other things that we value more. And so really, we have to do sort of a values inventory and ask ourselves sometimes some really difficult questions because, we're here for a task to complete our education. And so this is the time to prioritize and figure out what are the things that are most important and how do I plan for them? How do I make sure that I'm taking good care of myself? How am I making sure that I'm building relationships and that I'm doing all of the things that I need to do to be able to be successful in my undergraduate experience? And also, how do I make sure that I'm avoiding and limiting things that can be harmful to me, things that can be taking away time from me, and time that I could be investing differently? And so that transitions me to my next point. So 168 hours. That's exactly the number of hours that you have, that I have, that Dean Parmack has, that Luke has, that Emma has. We all have the same exact amount of time. And sometimes we wonder how some people are so much more productive than others. I would argue that it's really about how we choose to invest our time, right? And so that again is connected to the things that we value. We spend time on the things that we care about. And so we should ask ourselves, what am I investing my time in? And is that giving me the best return on my investment? Right. So now we're getting really financial here. I'm not at the business school, but I do know that, I have a retirement plan and you got to think about it 2 or 3 times when you make bad decisions about where you're investing your money, because then I don't get any money back. And that's not very good. So I encourage you to think about, as you start your first year at Fordham College, Rose Hill, what do I care about and how am I going to spend my time? And I understand friendships are important, so I encourage you to figure out how do you invest time in building friendships and relationships. I encourage you to invest time in taking care of yourself, right? And so is that good sleep? I would argue that sleep might be one of the most important things you can do in college, because not sleeping is almost like being on drugs. And so there's a great New York Times article about that, so I encourage you to check it out. But I would say for our first year students, sleep, taking good care of yourself, being in healthy relationships with your peers, your classmates, your administrators, faculty members, and professors can be really important because it creates a sense of community that can be really powerful, and that can help us to continue to ask important questions about ourselves, about the content, about the experience. And so, again, you have 168 hours. You get to pick how you invest it, and I hope you make wise choices about your investment. So those are my tips for you. So I encourage you to know yourself, so remember all of the things you already know. I encourage you to please prioritize and to also remember how to invest your time, because making a good investment will pay off in the end. So thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you are all joining us at Fordham College, Rose Hill this fall. And I hope that your summer so far has been wonderful. So I'm going to pass it back on to Dean Parmack, and we'll open it up to answer some questions for you all.
Thank you, Dean Garcia. Okay, Luke, take us away.
Okay, so we hope you enjoyed that informative presentation. It was great to hear about Fordham College or Rose Hill, and we are sure you have many questions. We would now like to open it up for those questions. You can type them in the Q&A feature, and the orientation team will pass them along to the panelists. Feel free to ask any questions related to academic life at Fordham College at Rose Hill. So you guys can start sending in some questions now into that box, and we'll be sure to answer as many as we can.
Okay, we see a few questions about advising. Just as a reminder, your advisor for transfer students, you should contact Dean Lennis directly. She and her assistant, Miss Emily Horahan, have been emailing you throughout the summer. So I would reach out to her to make sure if you have any questions. That's for the transfer student. Best way to get in contact with your SPAC, the easiest way is respond to their email. They have written to you many times over the summer. If for some reason you're still unable to do that or you have some problem communicating with them, please write to FCRH first year at fordham.edu, FCRH first year at fordham.edu, and we'll connect you with that respective SPAC.
So we have a few questions related to hybrid learning in the fall and what it would look like, how many classes will be online versus in person, etc.
Sure. So I'll give a quick answer. Perhaps Dean Garcia wants to add to this as well. But as of right now, the idea is broadly that a course would be hybrid accessed. In other words, if a student were unfortunately unable to be here in person, they can simply access the course fully, any and all of their courses online. So every course will have the flexibility to accommodate a variety of student learning models. Some of the students might be able to be here on campus, okay, with some spacing and social distancing involved. So the short answer is simply that regardless of your situation, you can still simply take those courses in whatever domain is appropriate for you, because every faculty member will honor and accommodate that in each of the courses.
And so I would add that in the coming weeks, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, you should be receiving a form that will allow students to opt into the method in which they want to learn this this upcoming semester. So for example, if a student is not going to be joining us on campus, they can complete the form and say that they want to opt into all of their classes online. And so that will be a way for you to communicate directly with the institution to create a plan accordingly. And so, between now and when the beginning of the semester happens, all of that should be in place. And we would imagine that there will be cases where students will take all of their classes online, or cases where the student may have most classes online, but a faculty member may not be able to join us. So as Dean Parmack said, the flexible hybrid is meant to accommodate all of the constituents at our university to ensure that everybody is safe, safety first, but also that they have the high quality education that they're coming to Fordham to have. And so our faculty have been working diligently this summer to put together courses that will work well in whatever format students need to take them in.
Thanks. I see a question here about an advanced English course. Sorry for the noise. The Department of New York City is cutting the grass across the street. The English department, there is this special advanced section of Comp 2. My encouragement there would be simply to email Professor Julie Kim. She's the one who emailed you originally about it, to ask any questions if you have any concerns. It's J-U Kim, K-I-M, at fordham.edu. I see a question about difficulty registering because you didn't register at your assigned time. Not a problem. Yes, all students have a block right now because it's a review period. So make sure you're in contact with your SPAC, and then you could work on it as soon as tomorrow. But I suspect they'll actually work with you even today. So please reach out to your SPAC today.
And as we mentioned earlier, after tomorrow, students will be able to go into the portal themselves and add courses. And so, today, as Dean Parmack said, the SPACs, I'm a SPAC, we're available in adding courses, but students can schedule a time to talk to us if they haven't done so. So please, no worries. There's still plenty of courses, and there's many classes that students can register for. If a student doesn't know who their SPAC is, as Dean Parmack said, they should check their emails because you should have received it. But if you haven't heard anything or don't see it in your email, please email us at our first year account, and we'll get back to you with a response as to who your assigned SPAC is. And again, that's FCRH
Dean
first
Park,
year
we
at
have a
Fordham.
question who's wondering.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So we have a question. Someone is wondering the internal transfer process from FCRH to Gabelli.
Sure. So in October, we have what's called the internal transfer option. So once you are through midterm examinations and get a sense of our curriculum, there might be some students who are thinking of a possible internal transfer to the Gabelli School of Business in the spring, or to Fordham College at Lincoln Center for the spring. And interestingly, there are some students in those respective colleges and campuses that might want to come to FCRH. So we do this kind of academic switch between the campuses. So you would meet with me. There'll be an info session at the time, during which you can recognize what are the options and opportunities. You'll get a sense of what the curriculum is like, and so on and so forth. I would also encourage you at this time, if you're thinking of a possible internal transfer to Gabelli, effective for the spring, we have one video on the Blackboard site I mentioned earlier that actually articulates this very question that we get. So I'd encourage you to watch that video and get a sense of how the curriculum would work out. But in short, you can take certain courses that would be Gabelli friendly. Courses that if you were to go to Gabelli, they would count for Gabelli. And if you were to then decide not to leave FCRH, they would still count for us. So you're still in a win-win in that situation. There was another question I saw, Luke, about EP courses, just to give a quick sense. An EP course is referring to the Latin term eloquentia perfecta. You learn a lot of Latin terms and acronyms here. And in short, what that means is it's not a separate course, but it's a specialized version of a particular course that you're taking. So all first-year students have to do one course that's designated as an EP tagged course. Half of you do it in the fall semester, the other half of you do it in the spring. So don't worry about when you're doing it. You'll do one of them and only one by the end of the first year. What does that mean practically speaking? Three things. The way that course is taught is that it's reading and writing intensive, and there's more oral presentation involved, and the class size is reduced to half the size. So there's more interaction with the students and with your faculty member. So that is an EP tagged course that would also satisfy another core course.
I'll also add that the EP classes are a great way to really explore something you didn't really think you'd want to take. So freshman year, my Eloquentia Perfecta class was philosophy of human nature. And I actually, turns out I ended up really liking philosophy, and I now have a minor in philosophy due to that EP class. And we do things like debates and other public speaking heavy topics, or we'll do like an extra essay. And I think it really makes you be more engaged with the topics that you're learning. So they're they're like a really great asset in the core at Fordham.
Thank you. There's a question about AP score reports. There's also a short video on that on the Blackboard side if you want more in-depth answer to that, but I'll briefly just state here, provided you have a score of 4 or 5 on any AP, it would count towards your Fordham degree in terms of course transfer and credit transfer. So there on the video, they explain how to get those score reports done. The simple answer is Google the College Board. You'll come up with the AP folks, and they'll show you the ways in which to have the scores sent to Fordham. But provided you have a score of 4 and 5, it counts towards your degree, and it behooves you to send that. There's another question from Courtney regarding, given the hybrid model, can a student still opt to take all courses in person? Right? So Dean Garcia had mentioned hopefully in the next week or two, you'll be introduced to different models that you would sign up for, and then you'll get a sense of those options and variety. Likewise, there'll be some student that perhaps cannot or chooses not to come in person, so they may be doing all of their courses remotely. So yes, there are different models that you can opt into. Abraham, you have a question about your high school transcript. Please feel free to write to FCRH first year at fordham.edu, and my office will help you.
Someone is asking, will a certain amount of our classes have to be virtual? So there is no policy as to how many can be virtual and how many can be in person. So it will really be kind of a case by case depending on students and the courses that they're registered for.
I see a number of questions which make sense regarding possible quarantine and this and that. Unfortunately, we don't have any definitive answer right now, just given the moving target, evolving nature of the situation, what's going on there too. But if you have any specific questions about housing, feel free to reach out to Residential Life, or specifically regarding your current status, you could write to admissions just to see what your options are. A few students have asked me that too. IB scores, Aya, sorry, I forgot to mention this too. Thanks for reminding me about that. So AP scores of 4 and 5, and likewise for IB scores, we count the HL, the higher level, scores of 5 or greater. So any IB, International Baccalaureate, board scores in the HL model, higher level, of scores of 5 or greater, likewise sent to Fordham, and you'll receive academic credit and course transfer for that too. It may go in different areas, maybe towards the core, maybe towards the major, minor, or electives, but nonetheless, it all works towards your graduation total of credits and courses. So it behooves you to send those too.
also have a question about having a major in Fordham College Rose Hill, having a minor in Gabelli, and how
Sure.
core
So,
classes
and I
would
see
look for
that question there. So a student can major in anything in our college and do any of the 4 business-related minors. And I'll mention them in order of popularity. Business administration, marketing, sustainable business, and accounting. So hundreds of our students have a minor in one or more of those areas. So if you're interested in that, there are different options for you to take advantage of that's there.
Someone was asking if they have courses at LC, would they travel there or would all their courses be online? We're hoping that most, if not all of your classes this fall will be at Fordham College Rose Hill. There should be very few exceptions in which students should be taking classes at Lincoln Center. Some of those would be some of our language courses that are at LC. Otherwise, you should be in all Rose Hill courses. And if you had your language course at LC, then you could travel to take the course there. Or you might opt into taking it online. But you should, for the most part, have all of your classes at Fordham College Rose Hill your first semester, since you have to take all of your core classes at your home college.
There were a few questions about Manresa. So I had commented earlier, but I'll just reiterate. Yes, I will be writing to you very, very shortly. I'm simply waiting for final confirmation from Residential Life of the students that were invited to Manresa and given an acceptance to see if they're accepting the acceptance. And then based on those numbers, you'll hear from me about the registration of that 5th course that you would need to change your schedule about to accommodate because it must be a Manresa course. I'll be writing to you very shortly. I see a question here about mental health resources and opportunities. Thank you for sharing that with us too. I'll give some brief response and perhaps Dr. Garcia has some more to share too. Yes, at this time, even more so than ever, as you might imagine, there are a number of students, parents, and faculty that have mental health concerns or psychological well-being. It's definitely understandable for many reasons there. Yes, Fordham is committed to continue that in a variety of different models that are there. And so much so that we're actually seeing direct threads throughout core advising throughout the year. Dean Garcia and I work together because we recognize that this is not just simply an interest in June or July, but it's something that will continue as a thread of concern throughout the academic year. So it's our intention too to actually weave it through in the types of academic advising and mental health counseling that is provided too.
And if you have really specific particular needs, you can always reach out to our counseling and psychological services directly during this time. I believe they're also running some different groups. You should follow them on social media. They regularly post different groups that they might be hosting. But this is a good time if you have specific questions and want to get connected or need additional resources to reach out to them.
I see a question about someone asking, what is Manresa? Manresa is a special integrated learning community. It's something that the students already applied to and were selected already at this point. So it's a special version of types of courses that they're taking. It's a question about ideal time to transfer to Gabelli. It depends on your situation, Claire. If the student came in with academic credits already, perhaps due to AP, IB, or external coursework, it might have accelerated their degree matriculation thus far. But even if they haven't, the ideal time would be either in October when you have a month and a half under your belt at FCRH to decide what you might want to do, or if you wanted to wait the full academic year, but it's rare that a student would decide after waiting one full academic year because they might have more summer courses to catch up with, which is not impossible, but ideally it's done in your first year.
And somebody's asking for classes at LC, do they get Ramban tickets discounted or full price? So if you're taking a class at Lincoln Center, you'll get Ramban passes for that class. And so you'll get a going and a coming back ticket that will be uploaded electronically. And then you'll just be able to scan them when you need to go between campuses. And that only applies if you're taking a class at the other campus.
I see a question about honors students. I would encourage you to write directly to Ava Gagliardi, who's been helping you this summer, because there are different options. Not every course you take is honor specific. You actually could take some courses in the mainstream curriculum too. but they wouldn't exceed 5 courses.
Mm.
A course is defined as 3 or more credits. So you might have different options if the credits are less than that. Sure, there's a question about language proficiency. My encouragement is write to your SFAC, and then I'll work with that person, and we'll work with modern languages to see exactly where you fall, because we have options that a student could actually take a course in Spanish for heritage speakers. So it's a course designed specifically for you, so you feel like you're challenged, but also not covering material that perhaps you've already mastered.
Someone asked if we'll have virtual tutoring services. So this summer we are running all of our tutoring services virtually. In the fall, all of the tutoring services also transitioned virtually. So you should expect that in the fall, all of the tutoring provided at the university will be virtual. And so we have had those services available, and we expect to have similar setup in the fall.
Luke or Emma, it might be good for you to give from a student's perspective. I see a question about support systems and spaces for students on campus, specifically LGBTQ+ and students of color.
Awesome. Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. Our Office of Multicultural Affairs does a really great job combining different clubs and opportunities to educate the student body, to bring in outside speakers. Obviously, a lot of these things might look different this semester, but there are a lot of networks. We have ASILI, which is our Black Student Alliance, LGBTQ plus friendly alliances as well. So there are many clubs that can be joined, as well as, there are many clubs and opportunities that you can join to make your time at Fordham feel as involved and inclusive as possible. I would suggest checking out the Office of Multicultural Affairs Instagram to see what clubs that they are promoting, to get a better and more comprehensive list of what clubs you can join, what speakers they're bringing in, what opportunities, as well as follow the orientation account on Instagram. It's at orient_RH. In August, we will be holding Zoom sessions for students who identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of color, LGBTQ+, non-Black people of color, first generation students, and a whole bunch of other Zoom sessions. So I would definitely check out both our Instagram and Office of Multicultural Affairs to hear a little bit more about what Fordham does to help students feel comfortable and included on campus.
Just to add on to Emma, I definitely emphasize joining our Zoom sessions if you are looking to get more information about those types of clubs and cultural groups on campus, because we will be having some orientation leaders share like their experiences and some really great resources at Fordham. So I definitely emphasize joining those takeovers.
I see a question about a bio student who's thinking about language. So even our STEM students, we encourage them to take the foreign language placement exam for 2 reasons. One, because if in fact they elect to move out of science, they have the fallback to see what language course they would be doing, because then they would be required to take it as part of the core. But second, is just as an option. So you're saying that you're a bio major and pre-health, not required to take foreign language credit. Does it mean I'll never be? No, it doesn't mean that. So any student can still take the foreign language course of study. But for the bio pre-health, they typically wouldn't do it the first semester because they're getting situated in the core and their sciences and labs. But it is possible perhaps as early as spring semester or thereafter. We have many science students who still elect to do language for a variety of reasons.
So in terms of the language requirement, the sequence is 4 courses, but depending on where you place, you may only need to take 1. So depending on where you start, so it's not just 1 course, but in some cases it might be 1 course. But the total, you must arrive to the exit level course for your specific one. So if you're picking Spanish, you will have to arrive to 2001. But some students begin an introductory one, and so it might take them 4 semesters to complete the sequence. In other cases, students are already entering in 2001 or a 2301 or 05 course, then they might be exiting after 1 semester.
I see a question about which courses count as Eloquency Perfecta. I'd give 2 quick answers to that. One, please do watch the video on Blackboard because it outlines it very specifically. And second, remember on your DegreeWorks guidance, it will indicate whether you are to take an EP1 this semester or not. Remember, half of our students are assigned to take one in the fall, and because of spacing, we can't accommodate everyone. The other half take it in the spring. So that would be the answer to when you would take it. A few questions about the honors program here. I would encourage you directly to write to Dr. Eve Keller, and perhaps Emma or Luke or Maureen, someone could get the email for her. She's a professor who is the director of the honors program. If you have any questions about possible transfer into that or any course options there.
So we have a question that says, what happens if I don't take a language first year and then decide I don't want to go into STEM anymore? That is exactly my case. I came into Fordham pre-health and bio major. After my freshman year, I was no longer bio major or STEM. So I had to switch and start taking my language requirement. That's why we asked that students take the placement exam early on, because I took the Spanish one. So I had that just in case. I did end up dropping out of STEM. So I got right into my Spanish requirement based on what I took on my Spanish placement test. And just to put context into what Dean Garcia had said, I took AP Spanish in high school, so I placed into 1102, which is the step right before the exit level. So I've only had to take 1102, Spanish 2001, and then that was all of my requirements. I'm done with Spanish because I hit the exit level. So that's how that would look if you end up. That's why we emphasize taking that language exam, even if you are STEM, because if you do drop out, it's super helpful to know where you have to start taking Spanish or a language in general.
Is there a related question about if you are a native speaker, can you take a course in more advanced in 2001? Yes, that's the one I mentioned earlier, the one they have for heritage speakers. So I would encourage you to write to your SPAC. And then if you need to follow up with me, I'm happy to connect you with the appropriate people. Who must take the math placement exam? You were contacted by Dean Beer. These are students that are specifically pursuing STEM related and pre-health fields. Which courses would be helpful for transferring into Gabelli? So take a look on that Blackboard video that we have there about interested in going to Gabelli. So it's a quick little video that will highlight those courses, but in particular, they seem to center around economics because it would count as a social science for our college, as well as be requisite courses for Gabelli if and when you should go there.
We also had a question on what platform professors will use for online classes. And just as a student that went through a semester online, it depends on the professor. Some use Zoom, others use Blackboard Collaborate, others use WebEx. So it just depends on which professor and how they would like to conduct their online classes. I don't know if that's changing for the upcoming fall, but it was super seamless to just join whatever your professors, they send you the link before class every day. And it just is a really seamless way into the class. It's like, I thought it was actually a really nice way most of the professors did it.
I see a question about 2500 placement. Yes, then you would simply take a higher level than 2001, and that one course would satisfy your requirement because we recognize some students have a higher proficiency. What is the differences of Gabelli and Rose Hill? Very many. You'd have to be more specific in your question. Gabelli is the School of Business. Ours is Arts and Sciences and Liberal Arts, though we share courses together. Question is, if you're a non-STEM student, do you recommend taking the math placement? Actually, we don't in that case, simply because you would be taking the traditional first-year core in mathematical reasoning. If you're specifically STEM, then that's why the math placement would be there. It's a question about how to find the videos on Blackboard. Write to your SPAC because they'll be able to guide you specifically the third, item down or the fourth, because they're all available there on the left-hand panel once you go to Blackboard.
So as we are running towards the end of this session, I'm just going to cap it as of right now. We'll keep the Q&A feature open for another 10 minutes for any last-minute questions. The deans will be able to, and the OLs will be able to type their answers right into the Q&A. But thank you to Dean Parmack, Dean Garcia, and thank you to everyone for participating. We will now have our sessions for pre-health and the fifth-year education track. If none of these sessions apply to you or you are not interested, you can take this time for a little stretch break before we reconvene at 12 o'clock for the What to Expect During Your First Year at College, led by myself and the other orientation coordinators, or What to Expect During Your Student's First Year at College, led by Dean Rogers for the family members and parents. Thank you so much. So if you still want to have your questions answered, type them in the Q&A box and we will answer them by typing. But if you would like to leave, you guys may start leaving now.